Welcome to Houston House at South by Southwest. I'm Natalie Harms, editor of Innovation Map. Energy storage technology and innovation is playing a critical part in the global energy transition. Broadreach Power, the fastest-growing battery storage developer in Texas, is leading the way. Managing Partner and Chief Technology Officer Doug Moorehead joined me for a conversation on the important role storage plays in the global energy transition and emerging technology in this space. Hi, Doug. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Natalie. Certainly, thanks for having me.
So, to start, why don't you give me a quick overview on Broadreach Power?
Well, certainly. So, Broadreach Power formed in 2019, summer 2019, as a really kind of the next generation kind of energy company based in Houston, Texas, really focused on kind of the next generation power plants. You know, we are what we consider ourselves an IPP, an independent power producer, funded by NCAP Investments, just certainly right downtown Houston there, as part of their NCAP Energy Transition Fund that historically long-term, 35 years, upstream, midstream, oil and gas investing, sensing now the transition from the investment world, wanting to focus on, you know, what's kind of the next transition of energy, of power plants and energy storage being, as we'll talk about today, just one part of that platform. We are focused on really standalone storage, meaning just a battery that, you know, takes in energy off the utility grid and puts it back, doing various ancillary services, power quality, and providing energy services to the utility. We're active in Texas mainly right now, but we have some projects now in California and a large portfolio of energy storage assets, as well as wind and solar in the Pacific Northwest, mainly in Montana. So backed by Houston investors and been very active now for 2 years.
Yeah. So you mentioned your Houston investors and your investors in general. What are they looking for, and why now for investing in your company?
Yeah, I mean they're just like every other investor. They want really good returns. Obviously, invest in high quality management teams, very credible business plans that have a sustainable 5, 10, 15-year future of growth. So depending on when they want to exit that business, it's a very sustainable and growth business. So whether it's, you know, we really don't, obviously we are in the clean tech space, you know, the renewable space, but that's not our position with the investment world. It's all about driving great returns in the marketplace, delivering a great product, a reliable service to the utility, and in a very sustainable, you know, high integrity way.
Yeah. So batteries are definitely a very topical discussion and a very topical technology. And so that's something you're focusing on. And so just, I guess, set the scene. Tell us why is it time to develop, you know, really good quality batteries and use them?
Yeah, no, certainly. Well, I've been doing it for the better part of 20 years, you know, just based upon my thesis work when I was in grad school at MIT years ago. And then we started out really on smaller microgrid solutions in the first part of my career, you know, 3 kilowatts, 5 kilowatts, then 10 kilowatts, integrated storage batteries. You know, we've even worked very closely with microgrids, diesel gensets, natural gas gensets to improve power quality. You know, we are seeing now just this inflection point where there is this next build out of the utility. Texas in particular, a great proving grounds, lots of renewables coming in West Texas, in the Panhandle, solar, wind. And frankly, batteries are a large missing piece of the power quality. You know, we just had obviously this very devastating event in Texas, you know, from the 13th to the 22nd. I've spent a lot of time, as you can imagine, in the last 2 weeks looking at the data from that event. The way our batteries performed just from we were greater than 99% uptime the entire time. We met every obligation we had in the market. And as, you know, ERCOT was going through, and unfortunately, I apologize if you had to go through it, you know, shedding load. They were, you know, shutting down sections of the utility, load shedding, what they call that. They can't support it, so they shut it down. We saw generators coming offline in a very large way. The frequency and the voltage of that utility was moving around very much like we see on a small 3 or 4 megawatt microgrid. And our batteries, as the frequency rose, we would charge our batteries to try to pull that frequency down. And as the frequency drooped, we would discharge instantaneously to support that bus. And that was a very an unfortunate real life scenario showing the absolute reliability and performance that batteries can deliver in a very short duration. And just more and more of that, as the batteries get more deployed with longer duration, they will begin to just, take larger and larger chunks of very secure loads, and provide it with a very reliable power source.
So, Doug, looking at what happened in February in Texas, the winter storm, what were some lessons learned that the state as a whole plus the industry really need to take moving forward?
No, certainly a good question. What I would say is that what we're seeing right now is that, in general, the questions around winterization. Obviously, we had the winter events. For our systems of broad reach power, we knew exactly where our systems were able to operate from a cold temperature to a hot temperature. And at those cold temperatures, the very things that we need to do to maintain them from any sort of icing conditions, and frankly to prevent them from derating. So we have 100% capability of that asset in this cold temperature. So I think the lesson learned is just, whether it's a gas plant, a coal plant, a wind or solar plant, or a battery storage facility, really understand your operations and know what you need to do to maintain them at 100% reliability, whether it's a cold day, or we could have the same conversation 6 months from now, right? In Houston when it's hot, hey, we lost our facility because it was hot out. So really understanding what your specifications for your plant are so they can operate with 100% reliability.
For the greater kind of global energy transition, what potential do batteries have to really disrupt, how we take traditional energy?
I think that the batteries are going to fill a very large void of just enabling really the 24/7, 24/365 deployment of, wind and solar. Obviously, the utility grid is one of those markets where you can't make a lot of energy right now in electrical formats and store it for later. Like you can store energy in gas. Obviously, you can store it in a fuel source. You can store it in a hydro dam. But in the electron version, it has to be a battery. And so right now, we're going to find our times. In California, they have the duck curve. It's forming now in Texas as well. We're producing a lot of energy in the middle of the day, where with solar that we just don't need it. That's not what we need. The load is not active then, but we have the solar. A lot of times we have wind at night or early morning where we're all asleep in Texas, getting ready to get up and go to the gym and start our days, So we got to be able to take that energy from midday and shift it to the evening hours. We got to be able to take that wind and shift it to the morning and the evening hours as well. And we can only do that with the electrochemical storage in the near term that batteries provide. And so it's going to really enable, with some pretty short duration batteries, 2 to 6 hour batteries, without kind of really diving into the specs, we can really shift that energy we capture or we produce from the renewables into longer duration coverage. And that doesn't say that all gas assets go away. Like we are not against any other resource at broad reach, but enables those, kind of gas plants to become more peaker plants and serve shorter durations on the utility. But it will definitely enable a much higher penetration and utilization of wind and solar assets.
So tell me a little bit about how last year, treated your company kind of really at this, unfortunate intersection of an oil and gas downturn and a global pandemic. You're not alone in having to kind of deal with both of those challenges. But, for broad reach power, how did you fare that duo of storms, I guess?
No, absolutely. So that obviously they were linked very closely. But as far as the pandemic, we are a very mobile company, very software based, and so we were able to really kind of take our technical developments, and so we could all, like we're working now from home, smaller groups, smaller offices, and able to keep all that going. It was just personally the busiest work year of my life, just because, we were very efficient. We quickly built out these nice offices, and lights and cameras and everything. And it works out really great from that perspective. From the oil and gas downturn, obviously we're based in Houston, Texas. Most of our employees are in the greater Houston area there. And we were able to attract some incredible talent into the company that had a 10, 15, 20-year career in oil and gas. And now they're bringing all those skills, from program management to market-facing folks to trading and operations in the oil and gas space into what we do. So It was a challenging year, but it was certainly a very good year for Broadreach. I mean, we kicked off. We're building 350 megawatts of energy-based battery systems in Texas, and we started all of those in 2020, and we finished probably 40% of them. We're finishing the rest of them now into 2021.
So you were actually able to grow your company.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We got the construction teams out. Obviously, we have electrical contractors and mechanical and civil contractors. They were still operation. Obviously, we quickly deployed COVID protocols, face masks on sites, all the proper separation, physical distancing, so we were able to work through it. And, that was certainly the spirit of us as great Americans, and obviously the folks in Texas did a fantastic job. We still kept working, just taking the right, precautions as needed.
So being based in Houston, what has that really meant for your company, and what aspects of the city of Houston contribute to the growth and development of both your company and the industry as a whole?
I frankly, my position is I think Texas will be the first state to be 100% energy based on renewables, just the way the growth is going. The business climate from Houston, throughout all of Texas is very business friendly. We're building out a new office there that I've been coordinating, and it's just a great, from the talent pool that's available to the just the business climate, the ease of access in and out of the city for visitors, for utility customers to come in, investors, obviously our existing investors' presence there. It's just been a very workable climate for us to build the business. Obviously, we have a very large portfolio of assets that we're going to build in South Zone, west of Houston, up around Dallas. We have the 2 100 megawatt projects right now in Austin, and with about a 7 gigawatt portfolio of assets we're going to build. And so it's just a nice central location to where we can access all of our portfolio in Texas from the greater Houston area.
So looking ahead 10 to 20 years, what do you really see for the industry? How is it going to transform over those years? And what's the role of your company through that transition?
Yeah. No, great question. I mean, I see more and more to where we are also like on the back of being just owning these large. I mean, at the end of the day, these are big battery plants. They're half an acre, they're 2 acres, they're 6 acres. They are large power plants that we build. Mm-hmm. On the back of that is going to be we have a incredible ability to collect data, store it, and then use it for predictive analytics. So I think that at some point in the future, we will certainly be a predictive analytic tool to help us, better position the batteries in the market to be responsive in the future. I could see the market becoming much more distributed, to where we do eventually maybe at individual homes, housing developments, communities, apartments. Because what's nice about an energy storage facility, it's scalable up. It's also scalable down to a smaller system, and so you could be more distributed. You could be more flexible. More resilient. You can have the ability to take, hey, we're going to take, the building you're sitting in right now for some times during the day. You could be your own islanded microgrid that your building is just like taking care of itself for whatever reasons, whether it's cost, reliability, security. I see those opportunities coming around. And what also some of the challenges, obviously, that was kind of all the good stuff. It's a big data platform. Like I said, it's a big connected globally platform. Cybersecurity will be ever increasing concern because just like our computers can be hacked, there's microprocessors throughout the entire smart generation power system. And we have to continue to take all that we learned on our mobile platforms, on our communication platforms, and apply them to our future power systems. So the next 10 years are going to be very interesting because it's going to be a lot of change, from where we were, call it, 2011 to where we'll be in 2031. It's going to be people say it a lot, but I think we are with the pandemic, with oil and gas where it is right now. I do feel like we're at an inflection point. I mean, it was just a couple weeks ago that Shell says, hey, Shell, one of the biggest oil companies in the world, so we're at peak oil, which means that every year from now on that you're going to be on basically a glide slope on oil production. And they told that to their investor base, which was a pretty meaningful statement for them to say, and if they see that, others probably see it as well. They might not be as vocal about it as Shell was, but that's a very impressive thing for them to do and say that's a great leadership position, and as they do less of oil and gas, and like I say, we're not against it, but there'll just be less of it. We're going to do more batteries and more wind and more solar for a more, resilient and reliable network.
What do you need to see more of within the industry to really kind of keep up to demand that's going to just only increase, it sounds like, over the next few years?
No, certainly a great question. What would we need more? There's an educational process right now. So I spend a lot of time with legislators, with regulators, understanding how batteries work. There's times right now where, I've been gone to battery conferences for years. They talk a lot about, well, there's a stacked revenue. We can do all these things at one time with the batteries. Well, in reality, you go to the market, like, you're scheduling operator in the market, they're not designed to do that just yet. So there's software configurations, there's network settings that need to change. It's just, there's an education, like I say, from the user base to the operators, to the regulators and the legislators about what this technology can do and what it can't do. And so that's the biggest hurdle we have, is just a level of understanding of what we do. But otherwise, the investment dollars are very keen on coming into this. The balance sheet side of our business, it's never easy, but money wants to come into our industries on a global basis. Whether it's financial investors, strategic investors, or energy investors like the Shells and the other folks in that space that want to get into this as they shift their asset mix in the oil and gas industry. And so it's just a continued effort, working hard to educate, to make good decisions, to buy the right equipment, to write the right specifications, and then continue. Maybe the last piece is maintain a very good safety record. We have an excellent safety record, and we just don't want to have any situations where we made some choices that were not complete and we have a safety event, because that is always what can set back new technology. Is you have a safety event and someone says it's not ready. It's not ready for the next stage. It is ready. We're there. We just need to continue to make good choices in what we do.
Of course, an industry, ripe for disruption with new technologies and innovation. What role can startups play in this? Because I know you mentioned investors, you mentioned the governmental side of things and regulatory side of things. But what about these startups that are emerging with new innovations?
No, I mean, it's a great opportunity for them because they don't have any bad. I always like to. I've been to many startups. The beauty of a startup is you don't have a lot of limitations. Then like you're not saddled with an asset base that you don't want to use. Some bad decisions that you made. You have a clean sheet, and so with a good plan and a growth opportunity and a good team and funding, you can deploy a lot of good ideas in what you do.
Doug, thanks so much for joining me for this discussion. It's really fascinating to see kind of what Broad Reach Power is doing and where y'all are going in the next several years.
Well, again, Natalie, thanks for having me. We are a long-term player in Texas, and so we'll be around. So anytime you want to do this again, another conversation, myself or my colleagues, we're always happy to do it. So again, thanks for the invite. Enjoyed chatting with you today, and look forward to when we can do it again.